Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of today's She Collective Space that is Women's Empowerment, which is very close and dear to all of us as well as dear to my heart. Women's empowerment is a force as delicate as it is unshakable, as fierce as the ocean storm, woven with love anchored in resilience and fueled by power, patience, and the will to rise. As it is said, I know my worth, I stand in my values, and I will not wait for the permission to lead. Today, we are not talking about empowerment as a luxury, but we are talking about ownership, our voice, and the kind of power that rewrites rules across industries, borders, and the lives we are living with. I am Husna Syeda, an executive leadership coach, a HR leader, a keynote speaker, and recently became an author. I'm so grateful to God for making me a woman I am because He gifted me to be special, the opportunity to embrace every role, and that has made me grow stronger because of the challenges we have seen. The facilitation of change I simply love, from being whatever the girl I was to the woman I am, a mother of two, a leader of so many, and an executive leadership coach to support the people around me. Right. And I strongly believe women's leadership isn't just about vital to business, but we play a critical role in the world we are. So for me, empowerment is discipline, courage, and grit. We are rising higher every single time we face challenges. It's not a quiet revolution, but a wildfire of possibilities, sparking change from boardrooms to communities. It's like a lighthouse. Through the fiercest storms, it lights the way, and we shine together. We just don't guide the path, we just change the horizon. So let me introduce you to the panel who's been joined together, a powerhouse panel who lead from the front lines of, let's start with the biopharma industry, a leader and executive coach who believes in innovating in life sciences while breaking the glass ceilings. None other than Cindy Cohen. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Husna. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And then the next leader and coach is from the healthcare who believes in transforming systems where human lives are the bottom line. None other than Debbie Schuhart. Hey, Debbie.
Hi, Husna. Glad to be here.
So then our leadership and a coach who's been in training and leadership development for more than I can imagine. So much of his seniority and experience she brings in, and the smile along. None other than our Susan, who shapes the leaders and the organization. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Husna. Happy to be here.
And then the none other than my own friend Tiffany Friend, who comes from the industry of utilities, the trade in HR, and leader and executive coach who believes ensuring essential services running with strategy and humanity. Welcome, Tiffany, with your broad smile, my sunshine.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you all. So, as our combined leadership spans through decades, countless challenges, come with an unwavering commitment to help other women rise, I'd like to start before we dive in. Right, I would love you all to introduce yourself and just give that one word that captures and encapsulates what does women empowerment mean to you. So let's start with Tiffany.
Mm. Well, the word that comes to mind for me is for women's empowerment is just having courage. And just to introduce myself, I'm Tiffany Friend, executive coach, but also have been in HR for a couple of decades now and helped a lot of different companies from startups to scale ups, been in the utilities, the trades, and all of those spaces. And I really think it's courage to be ourselves, courage to speak up, and just be brave to bring what we uniquely bring to the world of business and to the world generally.
Mhm, for sure. What about you, Susan? What do you think? What comes to your mind?
Oh, when I think about women empowerment, you said one word, I think, and so I'm going to say emboldened.
because it's encompasses a lot of attributes in one word. Strong.
Oh, sure. Awesome. Awesome. How
And
about you,
I
Debbie? I'm
oh,
sorry. Yeah, go
no,
ahead, Susan.
no, that's quite all right. Go ahead.
How about you, Debbie? What do you think women empowerment is to you?
When I first thought about this, I think the one word I was going to say was voice, but as that's been sort of ruminating in my head, I think empowerment, and especially from a woman's standpoint, is about giving and what we have to give, and making space, creating a space for everybody to sort of be able to appreciate that. So that's what I would say about that.
Thank you, Debbie. Let's talk to Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy Cohen, executive coach and thought partner to biopharma leaders and life science founders. When I think of empowerment, empowerment isn't not about being given power. It's really about realizing you already have agency. So I would say agency is my word. The freedom to choose, to speak, to lead. I think that's where it begins.
That's a very interesting thought, Cindy. So everybody comes with a different layer of empowerment, but yet, what comes along is that intentional approach to what we are, what we present, and what we really bring to the world. That's what I heard from every one of you in different forms. So as we process, here we are. Thanks for setting up the tone. Thanks for bringing along your expertise and experience about women empowerment. And this panel isn't about theories, but being authentic, live with leadership. And our mission is just as simple as it is to name the challenges, to share the strategies, and to step in to ignite the confidence you all have in your own spheres. So today we have three segments with the theme starting with the number one, the personal spark of empowerment. So let's begin from the root. The personal spark. The empowerment isn't just a title, but a decision, a moment you claim your voice and refuse to give it back. So let's start with Debbie. Debbie, what shifted for you when you realized your voice could change the conversation and you were ready to use it?
I think there were a few things, and I think it's an ongoing, I guess, journey from my point of view. So, being able to be heard, and I think we'll get to this a little bit later, but in the healthcare industry, most of senior leadership is male, and having been in the industry for several decades, as Tiffany would say, um, I started at a time where sometimes I was the only woman in the room, which I didn't even think about at the time. So I think as I realized sort of the power that I had with what I had to offer to whatever was going on in the room or around me, is when that shift kind of took place. And then going back to kind of what I said in the beginning, being able to, I think somebody else said it, give or have that power show up in others that I was working with. And that was really as critical to me, I think, as my own voice.
Definitely having a voice of your own. It's all about the situation and what you bring up as your voice. It's not about what others have, but what you say it in the moment is very important. That's a great part. Thank you, Debbie, for sharing that piece with us. So let's move on with Susan. This one is for you.
Okay.
Who was a woman who opened a door for you? And how has that shaped how you lead?
I think very early in my learning and development career, there was a woman, Gail Cagle, that came in. She was a new vice president and she was a game changer, really ready to make her mark. It was a large corporation. It was American Express, actually, is where it was at. And she was just this powerhouse with big ideas and big things that she wanted to do. And she was so authentic, right? So while she could be corporate, she was very approachable. She was very personable. Was easy to connect with her. But yet, when you'd see her interacting with executives, she was confident and she was really strong and would speak that language of business that really resonated with them. So she could command the room. And I thought, how lucky I am to be able to have her as my new VP, right? And she was in to make a difference there. And she believed in me and actually picked me out of the entire team and to work with two other male individuals to kind of move forward this initiative she had for kind of the first offshore uh, call center training group that we were doing. And so I had a male colleague on my team that was there, that was me, and then she had a consultant that was a male and whom she trusted and worked with. But the point for me was is that she believed in me, and she was also though tough. Like she could really be like, be very pointed in her feedback or pointing in her direction, but also energizing and bold. And she really taught me that in learning and development, so often people just do the training thing, and that she really taught me that learning is an enabler to helping business achieve their performance goals. And so it really kind of flipped the notion on its head. So I've always really, from that point in time, always moved to where that everything I do in learning and development starts with the lens of the business results, driving business results. How are we going to change performance needles? So I'm very metrics oriented. And, she really taught me that, as an enabler to achieve those goals, that really, if it wasn't for the business, there really wouldn't be a need for a learning and development department. And it always really stuck with me. It's like, wow, that's really true, So we kind of, sometimes I think learning leaders don't get their priorities right. And so she set me off, and it was really early in my career. So I've taken that mentality with me all through my career as a learning leader. And it's really helped me build very strong and strategic partnerships with anyone that I'm working with my business clients, whether they're internal, as I worked in organizations, or even now today externally as a consultant for other companies.
Definitely, Susan, that I can see so much in you as yourself as a leader. How much ever I have known you, I have always seen that part of you, that you bring in so much of value add that you learn from one leader who what you're presenting to so many other leaders for them to learn. I simply love that aura of you. Thank you, Susan, for sharing that piece with us.
Thank you.
Moving on, moving on with our next leader and coach, Cindy Cohen. What's a popular empowerment message you think misses the mark, and how would you rewrite it? Cindy, that's one for you.
Thanks, Yushna. I think fake it till you make it. It implies that pretending is the path to confidence or competence. I think it dismisses authenticity, which was brought up earlier, vulnerability, and the value of self-awareness. It may even encourage masking uncertainty rather than exploring and learning from it. I would rewrite it to face it as you grow into it. I think that honors the courage of showing up as you are. It also acknowledges growth, learning, and evolving confidence. Yeah, it's aligned with my belief that meaningful change comes from space, support, and challenge, not just pretense.
Wow, that's a lot of emotional value intelligence piece coming along, Cindy. That's a lot of awareness, a lot of being you, what you are, and as we always discuss, perspectives. So this was beautiful, emotional, intelligence piece of delivery. Thank you, Cindy. Going to our next leader and coach, Miss Tiffany Friend. So this one is for you, Tiffany. How has your industry shaped how you see women's power?
Well, in the utilities and trades, in my background, very male dominated. And I learned that power isn't really about out muscling anyone, it's about true partnership. And so out in the field, it takes grit, it takes skill. People's lives are on the lines. Safety is a really big deal. And so their pressures and their need to focus is on different things than maybe somebody who's behind the scenes in leadership, where it takes strategy and systems and visions to push an organization forward. And so I really believe when those strengths come together, that's when the real magic happens. And if you early on can build that credibility and that partnership, that's how I think women can really excel in industries where there's just not a lot of women who come up through the trades in my space. So um, having that trust, credibility, collaboration, and sometimes empowerment is just simply visibility. So showing up authentically so others see what's possible. It's speaking up when things are sometimes uncomfortable or hard. I'm really comfortable being vulnerable with construction guides in the fields. They don't like to talk about their feelings very often. So that's something that I can bring to the table, is like give them that safe space, and really come alongside them and have them genuinely feel cared for in a way that maybe they haven't experienced from leadership. And so to me, women's power and really leadership power is about alignment. It's knowing who you are, what you bring to the table, building that trust, and really using your strengths in service of something bigger than yourself.
That's really, really emotional, awesome. And I would say a practical alignment of what you have in your mind and how you deliver in terms of your speech. Because unless you have an alignment of how you perceive, how you emote, and how you execute, is a big part of women's empowerment. And I think women comes with that feelings of emotions and how they control those and how they deliver those in terms of alignment is what exactly women's empowerment, and that's what you discussed here in terms of a manly world when these things come in forefront. Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that piece with us. So I would say hearing these stories reminds us that empowerment isn't one size fitting all journey, but always it starts with the choice. So moving along, let's move into the next theme for today: breaking barriers across different industries. So every woman, empowered woman has met resistance in their life, today or past or tomorrow. What comes along for them? I believe the question is, what do we do with it? So let's talk about those barriers we have faced and the breakthroughs we have created through that resistance piece. So let's start with Debbie once again. So, what's one systematic barrier you have faced in your industry? And how did it work for you around, over, or through it?
I think the systemic barrier is not necessarily all that different from a lot of industries. As I mentioned earlier, executive leadership in healthcare has been, and certainly when I was, you know, involved and coming up through the ranks, very male dominated in what is a really female dominated industry. Uh, so caregivers in hospitals or in health systems are overwhelmingly female, and then the people who are actually administering, or the leaders have been overwhelmingly male. I don't have any data behind that where it sits now, but that's how it was when I was around. I think there's a couple of things, and it really never occurred to me as I was going through my life and my career what barriers might be in the way. Um, but I do, looking back, see that there were some. So the question is, how did I get through it, even though I wasn't necessarily able to pinpoint exactly what it was that was potentially in my way, that was a systemic barrier. I think we've talked about grit in the past, and that has to be part of it. I hear a lot, we're all talking about authenticity, and I think credibility. And so, like anybody else would have to do in proving, um, I guess, doing what you say, and really being able to back that up, and having success, and really being able to understand and manage people, and that's up, down, sideways, across the board, and show that you can make a difference. So I'm not sure that's an exact answer, nor is it necessarily all that unique. But I do think persistence, grit, credibility, and authenticity are some of the traits that help kind of work through those barriers.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Debbie. Definitely, there was an alignment of your thoughts wherein we say credibility, authenticity, and how we approach and what we are. That makes a big difference rather than what others are thinking and what others perceive about us. So that's what makes a big difference because it's all about you as a leader in that frame and what as a power, not like a feminist, but as a woman in that leadership, what we can bring along is what makes a difference. Thank you, Debbie, for sharing that piece with us. Moving on to Susan again. Susan, this one is for you. Where do you see the most untapped potential for women's leadership in your field?
Well, I guess when you say in the field, I would say learning and development. So it's not so much industry specific as it is kind of the role within organizations or industries. And, honestly, in my experience, it's pretty balanced with men and women. And some of the most impressive CLOs I've ever known are female, for large, multinational corporations. So they've they have a mark, but when I look at just women leaders and learning and development in general, as I've consulted with or coached with, a lot of times what I just see is going back to what I said earlier, it's that understand that business acumen being really important, because oftentimes when people move into learning leadership, they do it kind of through the training path. So they've never really been in the business side of the business, so it's like not having that experience or maybe curiosity to really learn more about it. You kind of know peripherally, but you don't really look under the hood to see how does this thing really run, So, I mean, for me, it's more about it's like knowledge is power, right? The more you understand about those operational things that are important to your internal business clients or whatever, the more impact that you can have as I think a woman leader. For sure. And I think, women bring usually the capacity to be good listeners and to when they're engaging with people and doing that and having that knowledge background behind you can really help you have really very strategic discussions, So because I see the biggest failing a lot of times is just talking about training like training and not training is like something that's really going to make an impact relates to results for the business. So I'm kind of stuck on that track because I think it's important because dollars are hard to get. People don't have time in the organization. And like, what are we actually training for? Like, what are we doing? Not only us as a learning organization, but what are we doing to the people below us? I think for Debbie probably can relate to this. Healthcare is a perfect example of that. The staff on the front line just get hammered with training for compliance, training for this. Oh, now you got to do this training. They got the educators that show up on the floor to do training for this. It's just constant. But, sometimes it's like, when do we really stop and say, what are we doing to these people? So how can we really look at this and say, how can we be kinder for the way that we're pushing things through? So I'm a huge heat map fan. I really believe in that as a fabulous resource, and so few people really use it, right? To really look and see the impact that the learning organization is having on the employees overall from a capacity perspective to actually do it and care about it and learn. So I think that's it. And I think the other thing is just being collaborative, but it's really that business acumen thing, I think, is kind of the biggest barrier for me. That's what I see.
Susan, I would like to acknowledge something of you, what you just said. Collaboration, knowledge is power. These are the two assets which you always bring along with you with expertise and experience, and I have known you thus far. And that shows a part of empowering. People get empowered when we collaborate. People get empowered when we share knowledge. It's not about what we bring. It's about authenticity again, credibility again. So these are all some of the values which I saw when you talked about your piece of women empowerment, and I simply acknowledge and appreciate what you are. Thank you for bringing that up. So now let's going to our next leader in our line, Cindy Cohen, once again. So this one is for you, Cindy. How do you see your position to create space for other women's voices?
I try to lead with presence, not dominance. That means staying grounded in what's really happening instead of pushing, what I think should be. I focus on listening with intention, inviting others to the conversation, and then highlighting their ideas, not just my own.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as I know, Cindy, these are the values she brings every time, showing presence, showing the inviting people to what they want to, where they want to be. And I would really bring back again the speed breakers and the speed bumps, the green signal, because that's what Cindy likes to bring in the focus back inviting people to where they want to be, not what she wants them to and where she wants them to go. So thank you, Cindy. That's a great piece of added value you always bring into your leadership and coaching, and I always admire that. Thank you for sharing that. So going along with our next leader, this one is for you, Tiffany. It is, what's one change you wish your industry would commit to in the next 5 years to advance women leaders?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I think it would be just evolving how we define leadership. So perhaps broadening pathways beyond just technical or finance. In the trades, often you're coming up through being out in the field and then coming up into leadership in utilities. That happened as well, but also there was a strong pathway from finance into the head leadership roles in the organizations. And I think if we open those up a bit and saw the unique values that other C leaders and directors bring to the table that could also be a great leader for an organization, I think that would give women more opportunity. And then also collaborating with women on the support they actually need. Designing something for women without asking women what they need seems kind of silly to me sometimes. And so really inviting them into that conversation and asking what should that look like, what would help them to thrive, and then creating some accountability so they don't just enter the pipeline, they actually advance and stay. And so that's where I think progress could become lasting changes, just kind of refocusing, redefining what leadership means across both the pathways and the support needed for women in those positions.
Mhm. That's really, truly awesome. You know what makes me think is lead by an example. Because as a leader, it's not about the gender here. It's about the leader themselves, what they bring in. And then, especially when we are a women leader, we're talking about women empowerment. They hold each other's hand. Let's walk through that. We don't have to really name it. We can feel it, sense it, and act on it. And that's what I heard from what you just said. Thank you for sharing that part of it, Tiffany. It's really awesome to have all you four talking about so much and so much knowledge in and out. I really wish our audience would walk away with something interesting and try to expand and execute them in their lives as well. So, moving on, I would say different industries, different landscape, but the thread is very clear. Change happens when we refuse to accept the default. So, I would go with the next theme for today, that is parent practice the tools, habits, and strategies. So, empowerment grows with roots when it shows up in our daily decisions and habits, the things we do when no one is watching us. So, I would start with Cindy this time. What's one leadership habit you practice daily that keeps you anchored in your power?
Asking thoughtful questions. That's a habit I practice every day. It keeps me curious, it keeps me present and focused on what matters. It's also how I cut through the noise, right? Inviting deeper thinking and staying connected to people, not just to problems.
Well, that's powerful. You know what? It adds to me a coaching tool. Being staying curious, staying using all those possible coaching questions that can help us to stay in alignment with what we want out of others and for us ourselves. Thank you, Cindy. So let's move on with Susan. This one is for you, Susan. How do you help other women see themselves as leaders before they have the title?
Before they have the title. Yeah, I think I mean my philosophy is we're all leaders, right? In our own right. We're leaders of ourselves every day or whatever, our families, our children, the jobs that we do. And for me, I think I focus on the fact that, being able to lead people is actually a privilege. And as you think about moving into being a leader of people, or a manager or even a supervisor or whatever, if that's a path that you want to take, that you really look at it as kind of a sacred role. I mean, it's like, what a privilege to be able to be there to support a team of people to achieve their goals, right? So oftentimes starting with women that are just getting new into leadership is helping them really understand like what's your signature, like what is your brand, what is your leadership philosophy, and really getting clear about how do they feel about leadership, what do you believe about leadership, as a leader, are your expectations, and what are your values around that, and really being clear on that, because those are kind of the guiding principles for you as you continue to evolve in your leadership role. You can refine that over time. It can change through your experiences. But I think being clear about it's just like having a vision and a mission, statement and your values. I think it's really clear, important to be clear about that. And for me, it's also just helping them understand like what resources do you have that really enhance your effectiveness as a leader. And for me, communication is probably the most and it's probably the strongest tool that they have in their arsenal, because if you're a good communicator on every level, to broader audiences, one-on-one with people in small teams, I mean, this is something that goes a long way toward building relationships and fostering what I like to talk about, that collaboration that they're going to have, which is really the name of the game for their success, So that's where I focus first on what your identity as it comes to there, sort of like know thyself, right? Before you kind of go out and into the world as a leader. Does that make sense?
Definitely, I completely agree when you say it's not about the title. It's about the title can be a mom who's staying at home. She's not a leader, but she's a leader within the house. She manages. We call them home minister, right? Because she manages home. She manages the big one, the male in her life, and the kids in her life. A big piece of resistance to resilience to great what we have done in the past. So that's what is powerful. So it's all not about the title. It's about how we accept, acknowledge, and move on. It's a challenge we take forward, as you said, the values we bring, and collaboration. Because she collaborates from home to the outside world. What she does it at home and she takes it forward without bringing those tensions and apprehensions, what is happening in her personal life to professional life. That's the transition a woman makes to bring the change in her professional life because she's coming along with her own values and dignity because she wants to show that she has that the change, what she is moderating to be whatever she can. That was powerful, Susan. Thank you for sharing that piece with us. Moving along to our next one. Tiffany, this one is for you. What is one small win you encourage women to claim to build confidence and momentum?
Good question. So when I work with women, either in coaching or in business and leadership, I always encourage them to speak up more than they normally would. So often we have that quiet voice in us that tells us, oh, I really think this, or I want to say that, and maybe there's some hesitation there. I always encourage, even if it's not perfect, start speaking up because that builds confidence. And that could be sharing an idea, offering feedback, whatever it looks like, maybe reaching out to have a new network opportunity. I work with some women who are starting business for the first time. They've never been in that space, and it's really uncomfortable. And they're having to do things that they've never done before. And so it's this kind of imposter syndrome of like, who am I to do that? Or what if they don't like me? Or what if I get rejected, and all these feelings. And I think just getting those reps in and having more practice, you can't get good at anything without practice. So each time you do it, you're training yourself to trust your own voice. And that momentum just starts to compound over time. And before long, you're not really waiting for confidence to show up anymore. You're just creating it through action. And I think that's really powerful.
That's interesting when you say that, Tiffany, because a woman can support women through these little spaces, through the silent voices what we have within, letting them explore and navigate where they want to be, giving the space to discuss and explore. As you always say, I heard you say, navigate with the compass, right? It was really, I would say, when you were talking about that, something comes to me is like, unless we give the space for the other women to come up and talk and share, how will we support other women in this journey? Right? So let them explore, let them navigate and have their voice. So we need to support that first to the other women around. That was really awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing that piece with us as well.
Yeah, thank you. One other thing I'll say too is that something that I think coaching helps so much with, because you get a really safe space to use your voice in a powerful way. And you can role play and you can practice and you can say things that are maybe a little uncomfortable for you, but you're doing it with a coach who, doesn't have any judgment, is allowing you to play a little bit and just hear yourself say the things out loud. And so I've really enjoyed having that myself as a leader for many years. I've had coaches in my space. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. The last one, this one is for you, Debbie. How do you keep your sense of purpose alive when leadership gets hard?
I think always taking a step back and a breath is one good way, but to refocus. And I think I may have mentioned this in the past, but leadership is very much about service. And when I start to think about serve the purpose that I'm serving, the people that I'm serving, the organization, like what it is there, I am there to do and support, that kind of moves me along from something that is difficult. Sometimes I just power through it because sometimes you just have to power through it and you just pick yourself up and you move as fast and hard as you can to get to the other side. And that sometimes is the answer. But most of the time, it's really thinking about how the impact that I can have and how I want to then show up in order to do that, and to be able to help whatever the goal is to get where it needs to go.
Mm. That was really cool because I really connected a few purpose, intentionality, clarity, and where we want to be. Because without purpose, there's no intention, there's no purpose. Without purpose, then we can't really be where we want to be. And that's what it is, like leaving everything behind and going out in the job, leaving our own self biases, what we call it in coaching, and getting to the work and showing up to the purpose is a big thing. And that is a power within ourselves because we have to be really strong to be there to support the other people to where they want to be. So something reminds me of a coaching question is any leader, before we get the feedback from others, I would ask myself, what feedback am I giving it to myself before I had asking feedback from others? What is that I want? What is my purpose? So that was really cool. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie, for sharing that piece again. So these are the moments that are often unseen and that builds the muscle of leadership. So we have the last very lightning round for all of us, and the message you would give to your younger self. So one sentence, speak straight from your heart. If you could tell your younger self one thing about owning your own voice, what would it be? So let's start with Susan.
It'll sound counterintuitive, probably. I'd say talk less, listen more.
Uh-huh. Beautiful. Let's go with Debbie next.
Think about how you want to show up.
Wow, amazing. Cindy.
I'm thinking along the same lines as Susan, which is tell less, ask more.
Uh-huh. Last but not the least, my sunshine, Tiffany.
And mine's going to be on the opposite side of the spectrum because I needed this when I was younger. Is that your influence begins the moment you stop editing yourself and start speaking with clarity, conviction, and authenticity.
Wow, a lot of values around there. A lot of values around there in terms of leadership, in terms of coaching, in terms of women empowerment. I love to jump with joy when people talk like this, when we come in alignment and share these thoughts, because that's what we are trying to show as leaders and coaches for our audience to walk through this and see what they can take along with us. And please do give us your feedback once you watch this through a QR code. You can watch it anywhere you feel like, probably a laptop, a mobile whenever you're probably driving a car. Listen to us and see what you want to share with us. Talk to us. If you really want to come on our show, please do let us know. We will be more than happy to talk to you, share with you our own thoughts, and explore and navigate as coaches and leaders. So stay tuned. So wrapping up for the last part of it, thank you each one of you for our collective leaders for bringing your piece of expertise, courage, and clarity to this table. Remember this: Power shared is not power lost. It multiplies. Empowering women isn't a moment, but it's a movement. And each one of us has a role to play in it. The women shape the ground we stand on before us. So let's ensure the women after us stand on something even more stronger. If you felt inspired tonight, don't let the spark fade. Connect with us, connect, and take one bold step this week to lead without an apology. Thank you for being here and the power of the power shift. Thank you, one and all. It was really nice talking to you about women empowerment.